Imagine a true Fallout MMO, where you could be what you want to be, with different playable races like humans, mutants, or cyborgs. One where you could build entire settlements out of old military bases or destroyed cities, and these settlements that you make could attract various NPCs that you could put to work or send on scavenging runs. You could be a good and honest mayor of the town and provide a safe place in the wasteland, or you could be a tyrant mayor and build a post-apocalyptic military superpower. Meanwhile, you could also explore a massive map doing quests, looting old technology, and leveling up your character. Sounds pretty cool, right? Well, this was the concept of Project V13, an MMO set in the Fallout universe that was being developed by Interplay, the company that originally created the Fallout series. Now, all of this sounds awesome, but sadly, it was never finished. It was officially cancelled on December 20th of 2012. So in this video, I would like to tell you the interesting story of Project V13, the Fallout MMO that we almost got. So let's start in November of 2006. At this point, Interplay still owned the Fallout IP, and they filed an 8-K form to the SEC regarding a potential Fallout massively multiplayer online game. Now, an 8-K is pretty much just a report that companies must file with the SEC when an important event takes place, like starting development on a new game such as this, so that way the current shareholders know about it. And I know that this all sounds pretty boring, but it is important because this is the first time a Fallout MMO was ever publicly mentioned. But continuing on, while in the early stages of working on this game, Interplay started to run into some financial troubles. They ended up declaring bankruptcy and decided to sell off the rights of some of their IPs, and this is actually how Bethesda got the rights to Fallout. In April of 2007, Bethesda purchased the rights to the Fallout IP for just about $6 million, and looking back on that, that was a pretty solid investment. Bethesda made out pretty good with that deal, but moving on again, Bethesda, now owning the Fallout IP, ended up licensing the rights to Interplay to make their own Fallout MMO. So now Bethesda owns Fallout, and they are basically just letting Interplay use the Fallout IP to make the MMO. But this came with some very specific requirements that had to be met, or else they would lose the rights to the Fallout IP. The requirements said that within 2 years, Interplay must begin work on the MMO and secure $30 million in funding, and the game must launch 4 years after development starts, and they have to give Bethesda 12% of all the sales and subscription fees for use of the IP. So from here, Interplay started working on Project V13, or Fallout Online. They started getting some funding, and in 2009 another company called Masthead Studios came on board to help. And at this point, Fallout 3 had already released and New Vegas had just started development, all while many of the original Fallout devs were working on V13. Now, Fallout 3 and New Vegas both use the same game engine. They both have that same first and third person view, the movement's the same, and the inventory and quests all work the same for the most part, but Project V13 was going to be a more traditional MMO in the Earthrise game engine. This was a game engine built by Masthead Studios, who came on to help Interplay with development, and we don't have any gameplay footage directly from Project V13, but we do have some really old footage from other games on that engine. Apparently for Fallout Online, they were going to use an updated version of this that allowed things like player-controlled areas and some better graphics, but again, we just don't have any gameplay footage of it, so we are just left to imagine what Fallout would look like using this game engine, and I think it could look pretty good. It has decent graphics, and it kind of has that nice old MMO charm, and it actually does have a targeting system somewhat similar to VAT, so I could see that working pretty well. So again, we don't have any gameplay footage, but we do have some pretty cool pre-alpha screenshots. So here's one of them. It's just a person standing overlooking a destroyed city with a Nuka-Cola billboard on the left. This one right here looks like they are talking to a super mutant who looks like he's maybe eating something, and they're actually wearing a Vault 13 jumpsuit, it looks like, so that's pretty cool. But then on this one here, they're kind of standing in an alleyway, and on the left there's a cliff with some shacks up on top and some broken metal, and then on the right it looks like there's a little campfire with some more super mutants around it. And that's not all. We also do have a photo of a small rundown gas station, but now moving on from these screenshots, we also do have some pretty neat concept art of some of the weapons that were going to be in the game. This one right here is called the Chem Blaster, and we don't really know how it would have worked or what types of chems it would actually use, but I still think it's pretty cool. We also do have a photo of a modified shotgun with a makeshift suppressor on it, and this really cool pistol that looks like a 9mm Beretta, and this concept art is actually called the Berryetta. I think it's because of the bayonet attached, so you can kind of like bury it into someone or something like that. But lastly, we also do have a big revolver and a super duper stim pack. And also, we did actually get a ton of really cool concept art for some of the locations in the game. Now, I did show some of it during the intro, but I do have some more here, and here we can see an airplane that's turned into a little settlement or a base. It has like a drawbridge in the back of it and some working lights. Also, there's this really cool photo of some people walking into a city with a green haze over it. Maybe it's a rad storm, or maybe it's just like a really swampy area. Also, we got this really cool look at a city covered in snow. I think this one is really cool. It kind of reminds me of the old Metro games. But then there is another one looking down on a destroyed city. And lastly, I think this one's pretty cool. It's called the Mantis Shrimp, and you can see it here fighting someone, and it kind of looks like a big boss fight. I would definitely like to see an enemy like this in a future Fallout game. Now, moving on from all of this concept art, they would eventually release a teaser video with some neat little Easter eggs hidden in there. You can see the Master Lives being carved into the desk, as well as the name Harold, and this video would end up coming with a sign-up link for a newsletter and a sign-up link for the beta test that will be coming later on. Now, this generated a lot of hype online, so much actually that the website ended up crashing with how many people were trying to sign up. People were just plain excited. Again, this was just after Fallout 3's success, and a lot of people wanted to explore a new wasteland. Now, those who ended up submitting their email address would start receiving some pretty cool little newsletters. These newsletters had all sorts of different things. They had information about the game, weapons that were coming to the game, some little short stories about the universe, and one of these newsletters actually ended up saying that you could play as a ghoul. It said that ghouls are the first announced playable race in Fallout Online, and if you choose to play as a ghoul, you will have high radiation resistance and slightly better than normal intelligence, and their gear tends to be in better condition than other races. And that's pretty cool that you could actually play as a different race. In the description of the game, it does say that you can play as a human, mutant, or a cyborg, so it looks like you could also maybe play as a super mutant, you could play as a human, and I'm not exactly sure what the cyborg would be, maybe some early form of a synth or something along those lines. But as cool as all of this was, sadly behind the scenes there was a very big legal battle going on between Bethesda and Interplay. Bethesda had said that Interplay failed to hold up their end of the deal by not securing $30 million in funding. They also said that Interplay had sublicensed the game out when they brought on Masthead Studios. So when Interplay hired Masthead, Bethesda considered that to be a breach of the contract, and all of this ended when both groups ended up dismissing the case, and Bethesda paid Interplay around $2 million for everything that they had worked on so far. And so the story ends with Bethesda owning the full Fallout IP and the partially developed MMO, and they ended up doing nothing with it, thus killing the official Fallout MMO, or Project V13. And the only reason we actually know so much about this game right now is due to this court case. Many of the screenshots and images were submitted as evidence for the trial, and apparently even some gameplay footage was shown in the case, about 90 seconds of it from the court documents, but I couldn't find it anywhere online, and I really looked everywhere. I think it'd be pretty cool to see that footage, but sadly I don't think it will ever come out. But eventually, Interplay did try to revive the game using the same name of Project V13, and they even tried crowdsourcing for it, but it was just no longer a Fallout game. They had to remove all of the references to Fallout from it, and it was just going to be a standard post-apocalyptic RPG. And the crowdsourcing wasn't even for the game itself, it was just for a proof of concept prototype, so that way they could take that and show it to investors and hopefully get some more funding. And honestly, it probably still would have been a pretty good game, but it just never reached its goals, and eventually that died off, leaving Project V13 fully cancelled. But that is pretty much going to be it for this video, so I really hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please do consider leaving a like or subscribing. It helps out the channel a ton, and it is greatly appreciated. Thank you again for watching, and as always, I would like to give a massive thank you to all of the channel members: Prince Julius, Victrix, Cody Craig, Robert Kennard, Argent Deer, Shaky Hands Workshop, Yosevated, Esdeath93, Dalton Murphy, Axel, Kevin W, Anna S, Fallout McFly, Networkgate, Golty, Wandering Wastelander, Lanthar, Captain Awesome, Citizen Girl, Heather Henderson, Patrick Ruda, 23 Icefire, Jay Smith, Bowser Double Frank, Chris Decker, Theodore, Digital Aardvark, Christy Mellon Schwitz. Thank you guys so much. I love you guys. Have a great day.